Welcome to this video about the CARAC duties in relation to independent advocacy. Please note that we have other videos on this topic in the Sky website, alongside with other resources, including some reflective questions to support you embedding the learning from this video. My name is Carmen, and today with me is June. In this video, we're going to explore the outcomes of independent advocacy and what can get on the way so that the outcomes are not the best possible ones for the individual, or that they are the best possible ones for the individuals. We need to be in our mind that sometimes an independent advocate, as we said in other videos, instead of an independent advocate, it may be an appropriate person. And it is about the individual feeling that somebody is on their side and experiencing that, somebody who's supporting them to be involved in the process. In previous videos, we have been talking about how it is really important that to inform the individual, adult or carer, that they have the right to have an independent advocate, and how sometimes they are perfectly capable of making a decision about whether they want it or not. But it's about, do we social care practitioners explain appropriately to the individual what an independent advocate will do? So June, in your experience, what are the differences when you have had somebody supporting you making decisions and supporting you being involved in the process, on when you haven't? And it may not have been an independent advocate, because I'm aware that some of your examples are before the CARE Act, but still the role is there. And it may well be one of the reasons why it was considered to bring this role into the law.
The difference is that I feel, when I feel included, that I can actually not just be supported to take part, but actually enabled and facilitated to lead the discussion. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. It's my life. Basically, I wanted to give an example of, well, I have already given an example of where I was not included in any decision making about an important topic in my, well, important part of my life. And then I want to give an example which actually started me on a road to my well-being improving greatly. So whereas the first example I was giving, I was very disempowered. I mean, you are completely disempowered when you are talking to professionals anyway, but when there are three of them there and just you, it really is disempowering. However, later on in that process, I was still under section, but my treatment and care was moving into the community, so I was seeing a community psychiatric nurse who also linked with the hospital. Basically, he kept giving me goal-orientated therapy or treatment, you know, right, within this week or next week, we are going to achieve this in these minutes. And I would hand him back the form and say, every time you give me a goal to achieve, when I don't achieve it, I will actually fail. When I fail at achieving it, it's something that then disempowers me even more, and I lose my confidence and my self-esteem. So it's rubbish giving me this. And he actually was very open to listening to me in the way I talked to him. And he had a respect and a humility almost, that he came alongside me. And so he actually then said to me, well, look, there's this group of people who are getting together who actually think they like you. There's lots to change in the system and they want to work collectively to achieve this. He said, why don't you go along? And he gave me the leaflet, the pamphlet, and then I went. And that was the start of my journey on self-empowerment. I suddenly found that people respected me, valued me, thought I was a good person, and that I could make a contribution that helped not just me, but them as well. So, you know, in our lives collectively, we were moving to a much different place. And that's really the start of my journey to where I am here today talking to you, because that's part of it. Yeah.
And I mean, that's a brilliant example of, you know, empowerment. But I think there is also a fantastic example of a strengths-based practice, yeah, because you said this professional was it was so humility. Well, for me, and respect. I don't think it's humility. I think it's we social care practitioners are really a tool to support you. So if we listen to you, we are much more capable of supporting you. Yeah. If we don't listen to you and we don't take into account what you say, we much less likely to support you. And in a strengths base, we start on holding the strengths individual. And what this practitioner did was realizing that one of your strengths is being open, being clear, and wanting to change things for the better. Yeah. So he
Yeah.
harnessed onto that. Yeah. To put you in contact with people where you felt supported and could do that from a collective. And that brought, as you said, a lot of benefit to your well-being, and health and physical for sure. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it is a perfect example of a strengths-based practice to person center. And obviously you didn't need an independent advocate, but obviously it is about doing things with you rather than
Yeah.
for you. So that
And
is
it's establishing that relationship. If he and I didn't have that relationship, I couldn't have spoken to him in a way which was important to me.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a brilliant example. I mean, the other thing sometimes that gets in the way is when there is a conflict of interest. Yeah. When we social care practitioners are talking to a couple, yeah, and there is an individual care for person and there is a carer, and the carer has a different agenda. For whatever reason, doesn't have to be malicious, doesn't have to be selfish. It may just be lack of understanding of what is available, or it may be fear and protectiveness and extra love. So it doesn't have to be that is a bad person or doesn't. No, it's just about, you know, being there and not knowing how to deal with the circumstances, because a lot of carers are scared, overwhelmed, and sometimes they make decisions for the care for person out of that fear or protectiveness, isn't it? So that's another circumstances where when there is a conflict of interest, or there is, not clearly two roles defined and two individuals positions being put forward and a healthy dynamic between them. That's another instance where an independent advocate could do very good job.
Absolutely. I just wanted to add that the agenda for my family would be probably different to mine, because later on, as I've reflected through the years, I have come to realize just how important identity is, and how important it is, having coming here as an immigrant, all the disempowerment situations I found, how that had impacted on my mental health. And now my father might not have that sort of recollection or recollection. He was disrespected. He experienced it, but he wasn't of the mind to ever speak up about it. So my mission was to speak out about it and examine my own identity and how much that impacted. And actually, that was trauma-informed. I'm not saying treatment, because it was me doing it all the time, but that trauma-informed approach that I did personally, that would probably not have come about if I hadn't distanced myself from some of the professionals themselves.
And that's exactly, I mean, personalities are also really, really important, isn't it? It may not be, because I did mention it may not be maliciousness or selfishness, but it may just be a personality. No, we don't all have the same priorities. We have different priorities. So yes, if for your father something else is a priority, they're not going to focus on something that is a priority for you. Not because they don't, I mean, they may know it's a priority for you, that may not be able to bring it up when needed because it's not a priority for them. Yeah. So here is another reason why somebody who loves you a lot, or supports you a lot, or knows you a lot is not necessarily an appropriate person sometimes. Yeah. The other thing for social care practitioners that is a very, very important message is we are professionals, whether we qualified or not. Yeah. And when we record any decisions based on legal requirements, and in this case, in relation to independent advocacy, it's not enough to say yes, no, required an independent advocate. We do need to explain why. We do need to justify why. We do need to put across the thinking process that has helped us, the rationale for making that decision. Yeah, because that is the professional way of putting across why we have decided not to provide an independent advocate for the individual. Yeah. I think that's quite nice content for this video. June, is there any key messages you want to add for our listeners as a closure?
No, I gave an example earlier about how my social report, the written record, was completely not just hijacked but falsified, because I was actually in a different place. And I have taught mental health practitioners who are involved in that sort of process, and every one of them and their tutors have said that wasn't lawful how it was done. It should have changed. You shouldn't have been on the section. So basically, I'm saying not only were they not taking my words, they actually, I believe, falsified what was happening. So that's all really that I have to say. I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much, June. Very important. Please, listeners, remember, when we write in one of those documents, we write about somebody. We write about somebody's life. So we need to be very, very careful what we write and how we write. And we need to think, yeah, how do we write it so we are actually fair and truth to the person that it is we're talking about, basically. So thank you very much.